Good morning and welcome to another daily live webcast called Jenncast, a daily live show that happens Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern here on YFElive.com. It's Winning Wednesday, and so we're going to be talking winning headlines with Cami Listenby, who's the founder of The Organizing Experts, a service-based organizing company that has grown into multiple states, been able to successfully scale and grow her team. So she's going to tell us a little bit about how she's been able to do that, and also discuss some interesting topics as far as organization goes with us. So my name is Jenn. I'm your host today. It's a 15-minute show. Use the hashtag Jenncast and comment below in the chat if you're watching live, letting us know what your questions are for Cami and your opinions on today's winning headlines. So let's go ahead and bring Cami on. Cami, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Yeah, hi.
So Cami, tell us when... All right, so first of all, let's take it back. I met you. This is really exciting stuff. I met you through, I think it was biznik, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So biznik.com, for those of you that haven't used the network, at the time it was a huge thing in Seattle. That was back in like 2009, 2010.
Yeah, I think 2008 is when I started my company in 2008, and probably biznik around the same time. It was kind of hand in hand for me.
Yeah, so you were really big on biznik. You were very well networked, and I actually went to one of your events. And at the end, I had to come up to you and I was like, oh my gosh, can you be my best friend? You're another young female entrepreneur. You know, that kind of starstruck type of a thing when you go to an event and you meet another young woman, especially at the time. There was not very many women out there that were in their 20s. So anyway, you had this company where it was just yourself. And since then, you've been able to grow that into amazing things. And I loved your background and how you're able to take this type of a cluttered or chaotic experience and find organization through that and where that came from. So tell us a little bit about how you got into organizing.
We only have 15 minutes, right?
I know, right?
So that's right. I've kind of found calm among the chaos, and I think that's what really resonates with my clients is that, you know, my story of success in entrepreneurship is really real. It's not kind of fluffy or glossy, and there's some dark parts in there that often my clients relate to and find comfort in knowing that that somebody's gone through similar experiences, because it's never just about the stuff. There's always an experience as to why somebody has a lot of chaos in their life and results in clutter. For me, I started my business right after I had been working with a lot of small business owners in the Ballard, Fremont area where I was living in Seattle at the time. I had just ended my year with the Seagulls, with the Seattle Seahawks that I did. And I was just feeling really unfulfilled, struggling with depression and wondering why I was putting so much effort into these jobs and not getting a whole lot back. I was working a ton of hours and not seeing the results that I was looking for, seeing other people getting promoted before me, doing less work. There was just a lot of chaos going on with the jobs I was having. And so one day I quit my job on my lunch break, very professionally, and I sat around for probably a month looking on Craigslist, looking for jobs. And at that time, it was really, really hard. It was kind of that real estate bubble, which I had been working in the real estate field at the time, just wasn't finding any work in Seattle. And I was sitting on my couch watching Oprah, my girl, I love her. And at that time, she was really promoting living your best life. That was kind of her segment and where her show was taking off at that time. And I was watching one afternoon and I saw this guy, Peter Walsh. And he had gone into this family's home and basically rescued them from their clutter. And I watched on TV this amazing instant gratification transformation happen where he decluttered their house and just made it this beautiful space. And I for some reason in that moment just struck a chord with me. And I thought, my resume at that time at 23 years old may have not, may not have been that powerful to an employer, but I knew something inside of me could make a difference for somebody else. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I knew that for working for other small business owners at the time, I noticed all the things they were struggling with and doing wrong. And I'd make suggestions and they would tell me no. And I thought to myself, I'd been organizing small businesses since high school. And why can't I do this for people? So that's really where it started. And I launched my business essentially at that moment. I thought to myself, I just want to make $100 a day. Don't care how many hours I work. I just want to walk home with $100 in my pocket. So I put a little ad on Craigslist and got flooded with calls. And that's really where it started. And my first client was actually my grandmother. She was a hoarder. And I just remember in my mind this room that you were not allowed to look at, you were not allowed to speak of or walk by. It was just a way of life for us in our home. And I thought, I'm going to start with her first. If I can do this with her, if I can have this experience with her, then I know I can do it for other people. And that's kind of where it started.
So Cammie, you started, like you said, just with your grandmother and an ad on Craigslist, which is where a lot of us start. And now you have this big team. You're across multiple states, and it's not just you that's organizing. You're essentially teaching other people how to do the same thing, go into someone's home and change their life. So what advice would you give to other service-based businesses that were where you are, that are where you were, I guess I should say, and they might have ads out on Craigslist and working with people on one-on-one and have those small goals? How do they get to the point where they can scale into them not actually doing all of the fulfillment?
Yes. Realize that it doesn't happen overnight. So many things that we see, it looks instant and wonderful. And I know even watching your guys' show for years and watching you develop in your companies is that I'm like, I want to do these great videos, and it takes a team of work. It takes, it doesn't happen overnight. And for my company, we've really just started expanding our business probably in the last 1.5 to 2 years. So out of the 6 years we've been in business, that growth that you've seen has really only happened in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And it doesn't happen overnight. So just, I would say, be patient with yourself. Know what your goals are and how you want to scale. So for us, we were all over the board. It's taken us 6 years to figure out our branding, get it all trademarked, get the legal stuff and the backside of the business figured out before we could expand. I knew what my vision was, so I would say that's an important component, is that I knew that other women had this passion, and so I just didn't know how to make that happen. So we first started with employees, and having employees and hiring my mom and firing my mom a million times, and it was not an easy process at first because I had this vision. I just didn't know how to make it happen. And I feel that the road to success is bumpy. It's not a one straight shot. And you have to just start with something. We moved from employees to contractors, and we found that works really well for us. And the model that we're developing is unique to us. And the first place also to start is really in training. I feel a lot of business owners that I help organize their business, they're not wanting to do what they do anymore. They just want other people to do it so they can do something they feel is more glamorous. And a true entrepreneur knows that you have to do the dirty work. And for us, developing that core training and really implementing and spending a lot of time training people and sharing our story has been the key development for growing our business.
Well, and I think that what's interesting is because I knew you back then, I know that you had been doing the work from the very beginning, and as far as that training goes. I remember, I don't know why I know this, but you had like a binder of systems that you use within your business so that you could essentially have hired someone. Yeah, exactly. See? So, I mean, this is something that you've always kind of been preparing yourself for, even if it was just you at the beginning. And I think that's a great takeaway, too, making sure that everything is solid and organized from the beginning so that when you get to that stage, whether it's 6 years later, whether it's 2 years later, that you're prepared. So, Cammie, thank you so much for sharing that advice with us. I wanted to get into some winning headlines because the first one I thought was really relevant to what you do as an organizer. I'm sure you go in and work with couples every once in a while at least. And there is an article that was published in Mashable called U.S. Couples More Likely to Share Passwords Than Calendars. And the statistics was that it was 72% of those that are 6 to 10 years married, as far as their relationship goes, they'll share their passwords versus the online calendars is down in the 10 to 13% range. So, Cammie, is this something that you find you struggle with working with couples and them sharing their day-to-days?
Yes. Communication is key in any relationship, right? So whether it's passwords, whether it's who gets the mail every day and brings it in, I think that every couple has a routine, and if they don't, that's where you should start. And people kind of shy away saying, even entrepreneurs, I don't want a routine. That's why I didn't want a job. But I think in the efficiency of running a household, typically what I see is one person is dominating the family calendar. And, giving up that, how do I say, that control, would be really, really hard, especially for a lot of my women clients, because they feel that they're keeping their household together. So allowing somebody to come in and move things around would really just, make things a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, but like you said, communication is key, whether it's in a marital relationship, especially if you're a young female entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about this in just a second. Sheryl Sandberg has always said it's so important who you choose to be your partner as far as marriage goes, and who's in your home with you, and who's helping take care of your kids. And so what are some ways that we can improve that communication as far as scheduling goes? I mean, just today, my husband's going to have to pick up my son early from school, and just coordinating that and making sure that we're both, again, like you said, communicating well is difficult. So is there any tips or tricks that you have around that?
I would just say, if you're in a partnership and scheduling is something that is really important to your day-to-day activity, that you make one person a primary. So if somebody is, their role is scheduling or, handling that day-to-day task, that you're going to them for confirmation or affirmation that these things will work within your system. But typically, if there's two people trying to dominate a project, you're going to get a lot of chaos. So if you make sure that one person is really handling that, and your system is to really just communicate back and forth what is already existing, and, I think that would be the key there.
I'm looking at the chat, and it's interesting. There's a couple women on here that are saying that they do have access to their husband's calendar and vice versa. So I don't. We don't share our calendars. So I think that is something that my husband always asks for kind of at the beginning of the week. What's going on this week? And so it would make sense if somehow he could see what it is that I'm doing on a daily basis. Because I don't think my husband even has a calendar. Maybe at work. I can't see Shane using a calendar. So anyway, the next one that I wanted to talk to you about, Cammie, was the Susan Patton. She's known as the, which school is it? Princeton Mom. She came out with an article last year that was basically really bitter, and she talked about the idea that, ladies, you need to find your mate in college, otherwise you're screwed for life. And so she came out with another article last week for Valentine's Day, or the week before that, whenever Valentine's Day was. And it's Susan Patton on a little Valentine's Day straight talk, and this was in the Wall Street Journal. And since then, there's been a couple articles that have come out that are speaking up against this, and they're all from young women. And so one of them is called Just Stop It, Princeton Mom. There's no one way to womanhood, and that's in Glamour. And there's another editorial piece in Hello Giggles that is basically the same kind of a thing. Quit it. We're not cool with that. And then one of the things I thought, Cammie, and I really can't speak to this because I got married when I was 20. I knew my husband from high school, so he's not a Princeton man or anything like that. But we had a very good working relationship as far as, being on a team. So I wanted to get your perspective on this as far as what Susan is arguing.
I have so many things to say. I know,
and I should start off with saying, are you currently single? Are you seeing anyone? I mean, what does that look like for you, especially as a busy young female entrepreneur?
Yes, well, my love life has been of topic for quite a long time, but thinking this morning about this article really stirred up a lot for me because I feel that Susan, in writing this article, I just imagined her one night by herself with a glass of wine and kind of getting on her high horse and putting it out there. So I just, as far as credibility-wise is concerned, you have to really consider the source and, what does it really matter what this one person thinks? That's what I thought when I read this, because if you were looking at my love life or my relationships, I would be failed in every component. I fell in love when I was 15 years old, and it's always been a bumpy road, but it's been a life lesson, and it's been interesting. And we've been on and off now for 12 years. And in there, I had a 4-year relationship with somebody who I fell in love with as well and was engaged to, and that failed. I think that relationships are an experience, and not all of them are successes, but life is not about being perfect. It's about learning to love yourself through the imperfections. What she's saying to me is very narrow-minded in this article, because I feel that through trials and tribulations and the not so good circumstances, you really get to learn someone and get to know them better. And I feel that her takeaway from her relationship was very, very bitter. And she was really pushing that in this article.
Yeah, she's definitely pushing a bitter agenda. And I have to agree with you. You do learn something, based off of these past relationships. And I think that it's unfortunate, the idea that you have to rush into something before you're 30, because like Sheryl Sandberg says, who you pick as your partner is really going to determine how successful you can be in your life. And that's what I genuinely believe, that if my husband was any different or any other, more demanding or had different expectations for me, it would make my life so much harder. I don't have to worry about that relationship, and therefore I'm able to put creative energy into another space, whereas I know a lot of women are not as fortunate. And there's women on the chat too that are commenting, if I'm in my 30s and I'm unable to find a mate, as she says, then I'm totally screwed. So, and as young female entrepreneurs, we're really busy, and we're not going into work like she says in this article. We're not meeting, men that we're able to work with and dating. It is about getting out there. And one of the commenters in the Hello Giggles article said, it's about going out and doing what you love and meeting people that have similar interests as you. And if you find that person, that's great. If you don't, you're still doing stuff that you love. And I really liked that comment. I thought that was a great piece of advice. At the same time, I don't really have the best perspective for this because I've been married for almost 10 years now.
Yeah. And she left out a huge demographic, which really upset me too. It wasn't, for her in her article, it wasn't about finding a mate. It was about finding a man, and the right kind of man. And I'm thinking, okay, well, are you saying that if you're gay, you're unsuccessful? If you're not, I just felt the whole thing was really, really bizarre.
And she has a book coming out too. It's so sensational. It's just like the headline grabbing type of a thing, and I have to agree with you. She's kind of bitter, and whoever.
It wasn't promoting love. It was really promoting bitterness, and I think that's what the media clung to, and there's just no time for that.
I agree. So, Cammie, where can everyone find you after this? Because you've always got something going on, and I love following you on Instagram, especially because you're always out in the wilderness in Arizona, and it's inspiring to see a young woman being so independent and going after, like what we were saying, doing what you love. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah. Well, my company is organizingexperts.com. On Instagram, I have 2 accounts. My personal is 26 Candles. And if you want to find us on social media, you can find us under Clutter Experts.
Fantastic. Well, Cammie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
All right, everyone, you've been watching Cammie Lisenby. She's the founder of The Organizing Expert, so make sure that you check her out. And I wanted to mention before we go, the women behind Leading Women at CNN International, they're good friends of young female entrepreneurs, and they wanted to make sure that we knew about an opportunity to get featured on CNN International. And this is a cable program, and it's also a big online program. Wifey has worked with them in the past on Twitter chats and a few other promotional opportunities like this. And to celebrate Women's Day, which is March 8th. They're asking by February 21st for you to submit some photos. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and link that to this video, below the video, and also on our blog so that you can find out more about the opportunity. I really love working with these women. I love everything that they're putting out there, so I definitely want to make sure that you check that out. Go to youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com or on youtube.com/YFentrepreneur. Stay in the know with everything young female entrepreneurs by signing up for our mailing list over at yfe.me/mailed it. Otherwise, thank you so much for showing up to today's Winning Wednesday. I had to put in at least one Charlie Sheen winning, right? And we'll see you back here tomorrow. We've got self-defense, Jarrett Arthur. She's going to talk to us about becoming an expert in something, and also going to go over a few self-defense moves. So hope to see you back there at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on YFELive.com. Thanks, everyone. Happy Winning Wednesday.